So this lesson, we're going to talk about go-to-market strategies. But before we actually talk about what a go-to-market strategy might look like and how to build yours, I wanted to make sure we clarify the difference between the strategy and a go-to-market plan, right? And I think oftentimes those are confused. So simply put, the strategy is kind of the overarching ways you're going to do things, right? It's your theory of action in many ways. Whereas your plan is what you're going to do under that tactically on what days or what weeks or what months. And just be careful because we want you to stick with your strategy. I think that what we're going to be doing is going to really help you refine what your strategy is. And I know that these strategies actually work in the industry just from my experience. And so you're going to stick with your strategies, but I also want to warn you that when you create plans, you're often creating these plans in perfect conditions. And I'll give you some examples of what I've experienced and what I mean by that. But you're creating plans in perfect conditions, but you're executing plans in imperfect conditions, right? Not everybody's doing exactly what you want when you want them to do it. And so those are typically imperfect conditions that you're operating in. So there's the strategy, there's your plan that you're developing in almost perfect conditions in your mind, and then there's the actual execution of it and continuously learning about what's happening as you're executing is really going to be the lifeblood of your go-to-market plan, because it's going to allow you to improve your strategies and improve your actual execution of those strategies in the plan. All right, so let's get started. Your go-to-market strategy is going to be the way you think about launching and selling your products or services. And we just want to make sure that, in this lesson also, you're able to take away some common mistakes that people make, or some, misinformed assumptions about how easy it is to take something to market. And so uh, you'll get a little bit of a theme around this, that a lot of effort, just an equal or more amount of effort, needs to be put in getting people to be aware of what you're trying to solve for, the solution that you have. And that is as important as actually building it. So let's get started. So in this lesson, we're going to cover a few things. One is using your lean canvas to refine your strategy, your go-to-market strategy. That's why we really wanted you to spend a lot of time just reflecting and tweaking that, just so you really feel like that's the one you're going to go with, at least at this point. Um, Again, talk about how to get those first 10 customers. It's just so essential that you have a clear plan to get your initial set of customers, and then uh, a go-to-market timeline. And it's like a go-to-market pacing guide per se, right? It's kind of the sequence of events and a way to think about what comes first and what comes next, kind of thing, over the next few months. And that's mostly just a kind of guidance, because depending on the time of year you're at in your process, your timelines might change a bit. And that's because just the cyclical nature of the school systems. I would say if you're a first time entrepreneur, and even if you've done this multiple times, but likely you're a first time entrepreneur if you're taking this course, it's important to keep the first few moves that you make in your strategy fairly simple. It's easy to get caught up in trying to do a lot of things, both from a marketing standpoint, but mostly from a problem solving standpoint with your product or service. It's easy to kind of go in a couple different directions in the beginning because you're just trying to land your first couple customers. And some of these might not be a perfect fit, but you're going to go after it. And I just have seen this happen so many times. So usually you're going to have to make some hard decisions around this. And that's why we really wanted you to hone in on refining your lean canvas, but the unique value proposition and your elevator pitch, because that is kind of what you're going to stick by. And you want to keep it simple because it could get really complicated very fast. But ideally, using your lean canvas, you want to focus on one customer persona or one segment. Especially in the early days, you just don't have a lot of resources to play around with, and you don't have kind of variations on all your marketing materials to actually refine it to continue to grow those other segments. So that's why you really want to focus in on and have a simple strategy in the beginning. I'll give you an example. I was talking to a special ed company that does interventions for students, and their website was all over the place. They did kind of everything from PD to special ed to IEP writing to workshops and MTSS and intervention and personalized learning. They were just doing a whole lot, and it wasn't a big company. And we were talking about the history of this company that's been around for quite a while now. And the issue they had was, they were just kind of grasping at kind of any customer, and they met, and then the tweaks they wanted. And, they ended up making some tweaks to go into MTSS, but then realized that it didn't really work out for them. So they went back to special ed. And in the beginning, what you really want to do is make sure that what you put in the lean canvas, your clear value proposition, the assumptions that you're making around the solution that you really envisioned works. And in order to test that, you need multiple instances of it. You can't just have one. And so that's why you have to focus on and have a simple segment and go-to-market strategy in the beginning. So what happens if you do make these tweaks, and like I said, it's very possible that you might shift into some adjacent markets by accident or intentionally in most cases. What happens is when you make those tweaks and you start going into a different persona or segment, all of the work that you did in the lean canvas, the planning, the value proposition, the elevator pitch, all of those actually don't fit what you're doing anymore. And that disconnect continues to grow over time. And then you start missing your mission and the actual problem you're solving. And what people forget to do as they make those shifts is that they actually need to go through that whole planning process again for that particular segment. And that's the number one thing that I see happening with folks with this is as they make some shifts and as they start to reach other markets or segments, they forget that all of the planning was based off of segment A, which might have been in this example SPED, but now they're talking about MTSS, and then they wonder why some of the things that they've worked on don't work in that segment, and it was because it wasn't really designed for that segment.